In this video, you're going to learn how I used a drone to photograph climate change in a photo essay that appeared around the world with CNN. I want to share with you the 5 steps to how I made this story, why I chose to use a drone, and how you can also make impactful images that have a chance to be published internationally. Hi, my name is Sean Gallagher. I'm a professional photographer and filmmaker. If you're new to my channel, welcome. For the past 20 years, I've been producing work for clients including National Geographic, The Guardian, and the Pulitzer Center. Here on my channel, I want to share with you some of the knowledge that I've gathered over the past 20 years to help you improve your own photography and elevate your images. In today's video, you're going to learn how I used a drone to document climate change in the tiny Pacific island nation of Tuvalu, and how I got that story published with CNN. I've been covering stories surrounding the climate crisis for almost 20 years. From China to Indonesia to India and Japan. I've traveled all over Asia trying to photograph what's happening to our changing world. During most of my career, I was using my trusty DSLR to take pictures. But in 2019, I decided to add a drone to my camera bag. I needed an appropriate story though to use the drone. So when I stumbled across this story about the tiny Pacific island nation of Tuvalu and its problems with the rising sea levels and flooding, I knew that this was the perfect story that I could start to try to use the drone to tell stories about climate change. Even before I went to the country, I started to imagine the different types of images that I could create. And this is a really important part of planning your story, pre-visualizing the images that you might be able to take. I often try to pre-visualize those images in my mind, just by using my imagination and trying to think of the types of images that might help me tell the story, even before I even go to a place. This allows me to visualize the beginning, middle, and end to the story. It helps me determine what equipment that I might need, and overall it just prepares me better for starting the story. Of course, you're never going to be able to predict exactly what you're going to find when you get to your destination, but pre-visualizing can really help you prepare and think about the story that you want to tell. So I had an idea for a story, I had my new tool in the drone, and I pre-visualized some of the story that I already wanted to tell. So the next step was to get on a plane and go to Tuvalu. Before flying the drone and starting to take pictures, it was really important to get familiar with the do's and don'ts of using a drone in the field. If you use a drone yourself, it's really important to get familiar with the rules and regulations in the specific place where you want to fly your drone. Rules vary widely from country to country, so what may be okay in one place might not be okay in another, so you have to take the responsibility of learning the local rules. In my case, I requested permission from the local aviation authority in Tuvalu before I arrived in the country, and asked permission to use the drone on the main island where I wanted to photograph. My second tip is that if you're photographing people, it's important to try to get their permission, or at least make them aware of yourself and your drone before you start taking pictures. I did this simply by introducing myself to people, talking to them, telling them what I was doing, and just making them generally aware of the drone and where I would be flying it. And in most cases, people were more than happy to be photographed. Of course, if people didn't want to be photographed, like if I was out with my normal camera, I would just be polite, respect their wishes, and just move on. But once I had the permission of the people that I needed, then I could get to the best part, which was taking photographs. One of the problems that I see with drone photography in general is that many of the pictures tend to be quite boring and are often taken in the same way. These often tend to be very general landscape images where the drone has just been flown straight up in the air the camera has been pointed towards the horizon, and then a very general landscape photograph has been taken. When I'm making images with the drone, I'm trying to use the drone in exactly the same way as I would my normal camera. This means I'm still paying attention to all the really important fundamental principles of photography, like light, color, composition, and moments. It's important to move beyond just the novelty of using a drone. The camera doesn't matter in itself, it's how you use it and implement the fundamental principles of photography to make powerful images. If it's safe to do so and you have the permission of the people that you're photographing, try flying your drone a little bit lower. Point the camera down to 45 degrees or even straight down at 90 degrees and try to look for patterns in the landscape. Play with color, play with composition, and look for those interesting moments as people move in and out of your frame. Once you start forgetting about the drone as being this novel piece of equipment and technology, then you can remember that it's just another camera, and you can use it in exactly the same way as you would your other cameras, and find those interesting ways to make impactful photos. One of the special techniques that I used occasionally when taking pictures with the drone in Tuvalu was to try to blur the motion of the water in the ocean and the lagoons. Have a look at these images to see what I mean. The aim of this technique was not as a gimmick, but as a way to help me communicate the story. Tuvalu is a very vulnerable nation to climate change and rising sea levels. And this simple photographic technique helped me visually communicate the power and motion of the water and its impact in Tuvalu. To take these pictures, I used a small neutral density filter on the main lens. The aim of a neutral density filter is to block out light from passing into the lens. So as more light is kept out of the lens, I had to compensate by extending my shutter speeds. As the shutter speed lengthened, it created this effect by blurring the waves. I also use this technique in these photos taken with my DSLR. Again, the aim was solely on using the technology and the photographic techniques as a tool for storytelling. So next time you're working on a story, think about how you can use technology to tell that story in a new or innovative way. That will help you create more unique images that might help you stand out and get the attention of editors for publication, which is what we're going to talk about next. One of the keys to getting your story published is to make it unique. Now, that uniqueness can come from the subject matter itself, or it can come from the way in which you photograph that story. In the case of this story on Tuvalu, when I pitched it to the editors at CNN, I led with the angle that these were taken with a drone and offered a new and interesting perspective on this issue of rising sea levels and flooding associated with climate change. In 2012, I also had another story published with CNN about climate change on the Tibetan Plateau. At that time, the editors actually found me through my website as they were looking for climate-themed stories at that time. So I think it's a really important thing for you to know and understand is that you need a good website and good social media presence that shows your work, but also shows the type of issues you cover and where you cover them. From that first publication in 2012, I kept in touch with the editors until I had a new story that I felt was suitable for them. And that was the Tuvalu story. So the key is to have a unique and important story, try to photograph it in a new or interesting way, and then try to get it in front of the right people at the publication that you want to get published in. I really hope that these 5 steps and tips can help you on your journey if you're trying to photograph similar stories and get them published in international publications. If you've made it this far in my video, I'd like to invite you to join my online communities. I have one on WeChat and one on WhatsApp. And in these groups, people share their images with me and the community, and it's a safe space to get feedback and discussion on your images and photography in general. To join these communities, all you need to do is visit my website, download my ebook, and at the end of the ebook there are QR codes that you can scan to add me as a contact, and I'll add you to those communities. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. I'll see you in the next video.